Hello again. This is Chapter 10, Community Political Systems and Local Governments. Just want to remind you that the purpose of these videos is guidance. I'm not really teaching through these videos, but I'm guiding you through very important aspects of each chapter that I recommend that you take notes on, think about, and email me if you have any questions before I create and submit the continuous test to you. Chapter 10, Community Political Systems, has to do with the wide variety of types of government that exist in the United States. And when I say types of government, I'm thinking of city governments, municipalities, incorporated governments, unincorporated governments, towns, villages, boroughs, uh, and any other functionary that you can think of, villages, townships, counties, and so on. There are over 89,000 governments in the United States. There's one federal government, and that leaves 88,999,000 other governments. What are they? Well, if we subtract 50 state governments and about 10 or 12 protectorates, that leaves us with still a lot of governments. And they are many, and they are diverse. They are diverse. There are two big groups of local governments, not counting the federal government or the states. There are two big groups, and I think of these groups as general purpose governments and special purpose governments. Okay? General purpose governments make law, statutory law, where we have elected officials sitting around a table thinking up laws to make for some purpose or another, and they adopt the law by voting on it. They are our representatives, so they adopt the law, they vote on it, and it comes into place, and then that law affects you and I. That's general purpose government. Special purpose governments are governments that have a very narrow, specific reason for their existence. They don't make law, they make regulations. For example, here in Claiborne County, we have a Office of Economic Development. That is a special purpose government. It's part of the county government, and their purpose is to attract more businesses, to write grants, to track grants that have been received in the past, to work closely with the Chamber of Commerce, and so on. The special purpose governments are like Parks and Recreation, the Health Department, any kind of governing body that's not run by elected officials or makes statutory law. These governments, special purpose governments, create regulations. If you take a look at page 332 in the text, you'll see table 10.1 with a listing of these special purpose and general purpose governments, 332. And you can see there are more than 89,000 governments that exist here in America. I think what we should focus on, or what I would have you focus your attention on, is city governments. City governments come by different names. A city government is an incorporated government, and that means it's been given a charter by a state government. So the state assembly here in Tennessee has given the city of Knoxville and the city of Harrogate, one's very large, one city is very small, charters. And the charters are the legal documents by which that city can run. And we call that manifestation of a state government giving a charter to a local government. We refer to that as incorporation. The city governments have been incorporated. City governments are also referred to as municipalities. They are sometimes referred to as towns. If they are incorporated and have a charter, then they are a city government or a town. Sometimes they are referred to as villages. Some states refer to these incorporated entities as boroughs. Depends upon the state you're in. For the most part, though, cities that are incorporated are referred to as city governments. They do many things, city governments or incorporated governments. Mostly, though, we can group what the city governments do into two main functions. Two main functions. One, they supply services, and secondly, they manage conflict. They supply services, and two, they manage conflict. Supply of services, you recognize what that means. Take a look at the text, the first few pages gives you some idea of the kinds of services that these general purpose governments supply. Anything from fire to parks and recreation to health care to managing a food stamp program and on and on and on. Libraries, they fix the roads, they hire people to look for grants for better governance, um, pollution, whether or not your driveway can extend to the road. There's a million things that these governments do. Take away the trash, or if you're in some counties, you have to take the trash to a local trash collection location. City governments supply services, and that's what we pay a lot of tax dollars for, is the supply of services. Secondly, though, urban governments, city governments, incorporated governments, they manage conflict in the sense that they help us to determine the direction we want to go in. And this is a fine line between managing conflict or making decisions for us and supplying services. For example, if we wanted our high schools to drop football, not only would we have a riot on our hands by most people in the state of Tennessee, but if we wanted them to drop football, it would be something that the local Board of Education in the county that you're in would have to decide. So you see, that's not necessarily a service. It's a decision to manage how we operate and how we exist. If we wanted the county of Claiborne County to stop collecting trash or to close its trash receptacle locations, it wouldn't go too well too quickly. Pretty soon it would be a stinky mess, and it would be lots of rats running around all over the place where everybody was dumping their trash on the sides of highways. But if we wanted that to happen, we could go to the county government, Claiborne County, and we could request that decision to be placed before the board, and the board could make the decision, and voila, managing conflict. So two big things that local governments do, incorporated governments. They supply services and they manage how we exist. So how do businesses and residents interact with government, with local governments? I think of this in one of three ways. Most citizens do nothing. That is, most citizens don't know what day the local town meets. They never go to a township meeting or a town meeting or a city meeting, and they really don't have time. And I'm not blaming people for this. I mean, most of us are caught up in our lives. We have 1,001 things to do, and so we expect our representatives to interact at city government and make sure things are operating properly. So one thing that most citizens do is do nothing. A second thing they might do is they might go to those meetings and participate and be involved and help councilmen make decisions by screaming and yelling at them or writing them letters, probably not, emails, or getting on blogs. And so there's a lot of different ways that people participate. Sometimes people run for office, that's participating. Sometimes there might be people picketing, carrying signs, being upset, or maybe sending wonderful letters to their representatives. A third way, though, that people can participate is what the chapter refers to as voting with their feet. In other words, if you don't like how Harrogate, Tennessee operates, then sell your house and move to Tazewell. If you don't like the way Tazewell operates, and you're able to, you can sell your house there and move to La Follette. So persons can either do nothing, they can participate, and they can just change and move away and go somewhere else. Most people do nothing, but there is about a third, or maybe between 10% and 30% of the people do participate from time to time. I have a YouTube video about the Trayvon Martin murder or killing incident you want to take a look at. I think it's very insightful about how people participate. The city manager and the police chief also is another YouTube. Take a look at those. They are in the notes that I've put up on lesson plan for week 8. So we've talked a little bit about general purpose governments. You want to look in the chapter at what's referred to as special districts. School districts, water districts, health and recreation, parks districts, crime districts. There's a whole lot of these listed on page 338, various kinds of districts. They have a special singular purpose. Recognize and understand, if you will, what they do and why they're existent and how they help city governments and county governments. County governments, as we talked about in an earlier chapter, are subdivisions of state governments. So in Tennessee, we have 95 counties, 95 county governments. We have a mayor of each county government. The mayor of Claiborne County has to contend with and work with 4 mayors of 4 cities: Harrogate, Tazewell, New Tazewell, and Cumberland Gap. Are they different? Yes. The county government operates under the state, directly related to state government, but the city governments have their own charters and act and interact separately and independently. They try to collaborate with the county that they're in. City governments in Tennessee collaborate with the county governments they're located in a variety of ways. Okay, so cities have charters. The book talks about something about Dillon's Rule. Dillon's Rule is by Judge Dillon, a jurist back in the early part of the 20th century, suggested that cities can have or should have one of several types of charters. And you can see this in the text, the most frequent charter is what's referred to as a General Act charter. This is typically a charter provided by size of city. So the state governments will allow cities that are very small to do certain kinds of things. Cities that are larger, let's say between 10,000 and 25,000 population, to adopt other kinds of activities. And the largest cities can work pretty much on their own. Those are General Act charters when they are stipulated by size. We also have other kinds of charters. You want to take a look at Home Rule charters. Home Rule overcomes Dillon's Rule, as you'll see when you look through the chapter, and be very familiar with the kinds of charters that exist and what Dillon's Rule actually means. Also, page 348 speaks to different kinds of city governments, various kinds of city governments. There's a traditional commission form, council manager form, strong mayor, and weak mayor forms of government. You want to become very familiar with those. There'll be a number of questions on your continuous test regarding forms of urban government. And as I say, special purpose governments to talk about. And I think if you look through those areas of concern, you'll have done well for this chapter. Again, if you're unclear on something, email me. Thank you.